Hey, good afternoon. Welcome to our session around unified commerce. We'll invite our panel up in a little bit. My name is Michael Lockyer. I'm the Vice President of Brand Development at IGA. And one of the things that's under my remit is digital commerce, e-commerce, and retail media. So happy to be here. Thank you for those hardy souls who stayed till almost the bitter end. And the fact that we have the forklifts going next door as we present is super cool, so excited about that. So thank you for that. We'll take you through a few facts and figures to set the stage, and then we'll invite our esteemed panel to join us on stage for some questions and answer, and hopefully we'll be a little bit more lively than just me talking up here. So as we think about kind of where we're starting this conversation is around e-commerce, and we know that grocery, after 5 years of landmark growth from an e-commerce standpoint, things are perhaps slowing down a little bit. But the good news is that grocery will remain the second largest e-commerce category over the next 3 years, and it's estimated that there will be about $50 billion created over the next 3 years. So second highest category in US e-commerce, and if we probably took a poll in this room 5, definitely 10 years ago, we would have said, well, grocery e-commerce, people like picking out their peppers and figuring out their meat and stuff like that. It'll never take off. It's pretty big. So as we think about this clicker doesn't work so well. As we think about the years of 3 years of significant growth over the past 3, digital grocery sales are estimated to moderate a little bit in terms of their overall growth, so less than 10% in 2025, but still a very sizable marketplace. And when we think about the marketplace for e-commerce, pretty evenly split between delivery and pickup. Ship to home obviously still plays a role. And if you look at the numbers for increase in delivery, a lot of that is attributable to a large mass merchant who starts with the W, who will not be named here, spending a lot of money in promotional efforts to drive delivery. And still, pickup is still in the lead by a little bit. So all of these are growing. All of these are important as we think about e-commerce. But we're not just here to talk about e-commerce. Suffice it to say, does anyone not use a digital device? Raise your hand. We got the guy raising his hand with the mobile phone. You win, sir. So this is some new data from FMI around the digitally engaged shopper that 90% of omni penetration across the store represented by shoppers both in-store and online. And so what this looks like is things like this. So it's people using Instacart. It's people shopping in their sweatpants with their mobile phone. It's using emails. It's using websites, it's using deals. So I think as we think about e-commerce, what we would talk about and what we would hope you to take away from today is that it's not just e-commerce, but digital, and digital has become pervasive in the world today. And really it's this unified commerce model that we want to talk about today of how digital is playing a role to drive sales and drive commerce, regardless of whether it's e-commerce and the sales are happening online or if those transactions are happening in store. And the way to think about it, this model, is to some extent, regardless of where you start on this wheel, digital browsing turns into physical buying, turns into online discovery, turns into store visits. Or if you were to start from store visits, you might find something that's super interesting to you, and so that leads into digital browsing, physical buying, online discovery. And we know so that 90% of people who are using digital in some form or fashion, there's higher lifetime value, there's increase in average order, there's higher loyalty, and there's lower customer acquisition costs. So this model for unified commerce is what we'll spend the next few minutes talking about with our panel. So if we can have them come up, that'd be great. Give them a round of hand for sticking around. And I modified the seating, so hopefully they won't fall off the stage as they get themselves settled. All right, so let's first go and have you guys explain name, role, and we'll get into questions after that. So Pat, take it away.
Thank you very much, and again, thanks for everyone staying late here as the floor rumbles. So Pat Hughes, I'm the CEO at eGrowcery. We provide white label unified commerce for independent retailers, so that whether you're looking at delivery, click and collect, or the like, it's your brand, you own the data, and we support you with whatever strategy that is.
I do not have the late night DJ voice of my friend here on my right, but my name is Merrick Rosner. I'm head of revenue for the local independent grocery division at Instacart, lead sales, account management, and industry relations, and really we're just here to support our independents, help them get access to the tools they need, the techniques they need, the innovation they need to survive and grow and compete every day.
I like your voice, Merrick. But no, I am Shawn Tuckett. I'm the CEO of Webstop. Webstop is not an e-commerce company, but Michael and I had a good dinner last night, and I think he wanted a few more people here. So he asked if I would come.
True.
So, no, we provide retailer-centric technology. We provide advertising websites, digital circulars to retailer. We integrate with all the different e-commerce companies to create a more unified commerce experience for the shopper. So looking forward to this discussion.
Hi everybody, my name is Rahul Chabukswar. I'm the founder and CEO of Homesome. Homesome is a digital platform for grocery stores, so website, apps, and in-store kiosk. Looking forward to chatting about unified commerce here.
Great, and I was remiss, so is this anyone's first session at NGA during the 2025 NGA show? Okay, then the fact that I neglected to read the anti-compete thing here, everyone already knows that, and I'm not going to get in trouble. So, and the good thing is we're not recording this, so there will be no evidence that I didn't do that. So one of the things that's interesting about the unified commerce model is kind of channel fluidity, right? So that's the ability of consumers to seamlessly transition between different shopping channels such as e-commerce, in-store, social. So kind of the first question that we want to get to is, what does the shift from e-commerce to unified commerce mean, and how should retailers think about it? And Rahul, we'll start with you because to some extent this panel conversation came from talking to your team about this notion of broaden it, although I did TM, unified commerce model, but so what does the shift mean for you, and more importantly, how should retailers think about it?
Yeah, no, and we started thinking about this more and more deeper towards the end of 2023. Is like, 90% of the shopping still happens in store, and if you are only focusing on e-commerce, then your digital investments are only going to yield so much ROI. So your 10% of the shoppers who are shopping online today, even though it's projected to grow, like what about the 90% of the shoppers that are shopping in store today? So how can you make your digital investments that facilitate the conversation that shoppers want to have with your brand, and the brand as a brand and as a retailer, the conversation that you want to have with your shoppers? So think about like the weekly ad, the digital coupons, the list building, and all of that, which is intended to facilitate the in-store shopping. So that's what it means to me. Is now like we used to be so much focused on e-commerce, and we would always have the first number that we track is what is the e-commerce volume year over year, month over month. What's percentage of the business where we are driving to e-commerce? Although we track that, what we started tracking more and more is digitally originated orders. So what are the orders, what are the transactions, what are the purchases that were inspired through digital interactions? And that's what we are focused on.
Shawn?
Sure. So, it's interesting. was watching this evolve over the last few years, I remember hearing a term, phygital shopping. The intersection of physical and digital, unified commerce rolls off the tongue much nicer. But it's interesting just to think about how grocers have gone through this evolution of e-commerce. When Webstop started back in the early 2000s, there was a company called Webvan. We've seen all these iterations of e-commerce, but COVID really, obviously fast-tracked that for so many retailers. So many retailers had to kind of face the reality of, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if I'm going to be good at it, but there's no other choice at this point. And it was kind of like that kick in the rear end that got them going. And what we've seen since then is now just really just the kind of balancing of it all. And obviously we had some big ups with e-commerce. It's stabilized. Michael shared that first slide that growth is slowing down a little bit. But where retailers are at today, every trip counts. Every single shopper counts. The trips are going down. There's more channels than ever to shop. So being, in a space where you offer the shopper the convenience of choice, do they want to come in store? Do they want to do an e-commerce right now? Do they want to do a marketplace and get something from your store? How we look at it at Webstop, when retailers ask us advice about it, we say, be where your shopper is, but get in this space, do something, and if it can be part of that larger ecosystem, you're just going to be better off for it.
Merrick?
Yeah, I would add that you've probably heard this before, but technology has never moved this quickly before, but it'll never move this slowly again. And when you think about that and the inflection point that independent grocers specifically are at, they've got to make a decision to get off the sidelines and get in the game in some way, shape, or form. And now they're in a situation where that gap is only growing bigger and bigger between them and the larger retailers who have invested in this space for so many years. And you still talk to retailers like today who think, well, it's only single digits percentage of my sales. How can I justify stopping other priorities or investing in this or allocating resources to this when I have the other 90 to 93% of my business that's still happening in store? Well, if you zoom out and look at some of these graphs and the data that exists, your in-store sales are going to remain relatively flat over time. And you just want to survive and maintain that number. But the digital sales are going to continue to grow upwards of somewhere in the 20% range. So if you're not making your investments in there, the gap between yourselves and those who have been investing in this space is only going to grow over time. So it's really important that the independent retailers specifically are finding the right partners who can help them chart that path, and they start to make those investments today.
Yeah, there's a lot said there that's right. A couple things to think about, I would say, and we talked about this when we did our little preparation, but that growth is going down, right? But it's still 5 to 6% per year. If you look at overall retail, it's generally flat. So if you look at projected, 0 to 2%. Said differently, all of your growth is going to be digital. Now that makes that graph look much more different, right, when you think about it that way. So then you pull into unified commerce, and unified commerce can be buying groceries online and picking up in store. It can be walking an aisle and locating a product. It can be doing prepared foods. It can be catering. There's a lot of different things. As you go through that, and one of you gentlemen said this, is you have to prioritize. You have to create a roadmap that makes sense for you. And if your strength, say, is prepared food, you should look at that as potentially the next step. Or if you're getting a lot of in-store traffic, you should really think about how to support that. So there's a lot of different tactics there, but take the time to take a step back. It is going to go, much faster, and it's going to go very quick. So start to plan that now. You don't have to boil the ocean. You don't have to do all of that now, but you absolutely have to get in the game.
Perfect, thanks. So as we're talking about unified commerce, not just e-commerce, we'll start with you, Shawn. How should grocers integrate their digital offering with the in-store experience and vice versa to best meet the omnichannel customer needs?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about some of the trends that we've seen over the last few years, there was a big push into off-site media the last few years. There's a lot of talk about how of all this advertising transition that we've seen, so many of the dollars that used to go into print have now gone into off-site media. And I'm talking about the ads you see on the side of Google, the ads you see, on various places on the internet that drive back to your own channels and are basically reinforcing your brand out on the internet. Well, what we've found is that while there is tons of opportunity there, more eyeballs than really anywhere else, there's also not a lot of intent with those shoppers. It influences them, but they're not in a buying mode. These shoppers are not in a place where they are thinking about necessarily the groceries that they're going to buy. Whereas if they are on an e-commerce platform, that is very close to the point of purchase. They are literally choosing the items right then. But if we take that step beyond e-commerce and say, where are the most actual buying decisions happening? Where is that actually the closest to the point of purchase? It's in store. So when you're in store, what are you doing to reinforce the marketing efforts, the merchandising, all these different things? What are you doing in store that reinforces what you showed them on your website or on your e-commerce platform? Are you connecting those dots to a point where the shopper is feeling through the whole process that you are, personalizing your offering to them or giving them opportunity, with repetition by taking that same thing that you're doing online and making it happen in store? And what I'm hearing from the brand partners we work with and from the CPGs is they want more of that in-store experience. They want to focus there. It's what's old is new, or what is the term? What's old is new again. They are now focusing in on that in-store experience and saying, hey, this is a prime space. These shoppers are in a buying mode. We're seeing that our promotions here are better connecting than some of the other avenues that we're trying.
Pat?
Yeah, a quick story. I was working with a retailer this week, and hopefully they're not here. I don't want to get in trouble. But we were talking about unified commerce, and we went through this presentation.
Trademark pending.
Trademark, yeah. I know, I got to get my own term. I got to change it up a little bit, get my own TM. So we were working with this retailer, a lot of complex questions. I want to do in-store, I want to do online, I want to do propensity to purchase models, I want to do all these complex actions, right? And we got to the end of it, and they said, well, we haven't connected our scale to our POS yet. And so my best advice, as you think about this, is the underlying value to making all this happen is getting the data flowing through the experience. And so as you roadmap this and you think about that, how well is your loyalty integrated? How well is your point of sale integrated? Where's the opportunity to allow that data to move back and forth in a more seamless manner? That is going to enable all that. The tech will be part of it, but the data is what moves within the tech. So to also start thinking about that data and where your gaps are.
Yeah, I would just add to that, historically speaking, most decisions that were made for online experience were based on a retailer's historical data from in-store. It's time to flip the script. We gather so much information about user behavior and upsell and cross-sell behavior from online digital experience. You can take those learnings and actually apply them to what's going on in-store. Different but similar story yesterday from a retailer who said, I'm not ready for online because I can't control the merchandising. I can't control that in-store setup and that display for seasonality to present that customized experience for when my customer walks into my store, and that's what we're known for. And I said, well, actually, you can take that to a whole new level online because of the data. And actually, you can personalize what shows up in which order based on the individual's historical context, if you've got loyalty data and things of that nature, so that every time they enter your store online, they're actually getting a unique experience that's personalized to them based on your learnings in store for sure, but also based on the capabilities we have and the data we have from their online experience. So then if you take, again, just go back to flipping the script, if you start to use some of that information to inform how you're displaying things in store, you've actually earned a huge advantage based on that information.
Well, I wasn't going to call on you for that question, but you did well.
Thank you. Trademark pending.
Yeah.
I agree with what everybody said here. I think the more you have sort of the parity between the in-store and online, So that's been one of the problems of the online experiences over the past few years, right? Like some of the promotions are not available online. I can't clip my digital coupons easily. I can't, my loyalty doesn't work, and so on and so forth. But if you actually invest in that and if you make that seamless, what happens is actually then the consumers start looking at your digital investments more seriously, and they get attached to that. And it's almost as good as like visiting your store. When you actually it is so easy for you to get somebody to open your app or log on to your website versus actually traveling to your store or driving to your store. So if you actually invest in digital and make your website, your app, or your storefront as appealing as your in-store experience is, then you're going to win that game, and then you're going to be set up for success. Like one of the things that happened, like I'm talking to independent or regional grocers, I ask everybody a question: what's your in-store experience like? 1 out of 10. Nobody rates their store below 8. Okay, like they're like 8, 9, or 10. In-store experiences, top notch, like we are super proud of it. And when I ask them, what's your online experience? And they're like 4, 5, 6. And I'm like, okay, what's the discrepancy here? Why is your online experience not 8 out of 10? And what happens if your in-store experience goes to 3, 4, 5? Answer is heads will roll. Like people will get fired if our in-store experience goes to 3, 4, or 5. So that's what your opportunity is, and that's what some of the larger retailers have done over the last few years. Like Walmart integrated their 2 different apps, Walmart Grocery and Walmart.com e-commerce. They merged that together in 2022, and you can see the results. Like every quarter, their e-commerce and digital growth has been 25% or more year over year. And they recently did $1 billion plus month on in-store fulfilled orders. So it's pretty amazing what you can do with having great digital experience that reflects your in-store value prop.
And that really gets to the heart of unified commerce model, TM, is that things should be aligned, things should work well and seamless together, because if you've raised the expectations for the online experience, then you go in store and you're not delivering against that, or vice versa, right? As you said, the in-store experience is great, and then you go online and it's just a bunch of boxes and numbers, right? That's going to disappoint the shopper, and that's not what we want to do overall.
I want to just add one more thing. When I speak to a lot of independents to Shawn's point earlier, a lot of retailers got into e-commerce because they had to. They were forced to based on the pandemic, and then they basically kind of like set it and forget it and didn't come back to it. And then what Rahul was saying about whether or not there's pride in their online experience, whether or not it reflects their brand differentiation and what makes them special and unique to the customers they serve. If you ask 10 independent grocers if they actually walk their digital aisles, 8, 9 of them will tell you they don't. But they walk their physical aisles every day with pride. And if something's out of place or there's a bucket there from the night before, they clean it up, they fix it, and they take great pride in that. And we need to challenge the independent grocers to do the same online and make sure that it represents their brand, so they can have that same confidence that if someone walks into their digital store, they're going to have that same special, unique experience.
I think it's called surfing online, not walking. We've got multiple companies up here, and I love this visual from my colleague Sarah Rivers that kind of shows the Franken stack instead of the Martech stack that exists sometimes within the independent retail system. And I'm not sure why Sarah is using a package of cigarettes to build out her digital stack, but anyway. So given disparate partners and solutions, how can retailers best manage their tech ecosystems and integrations? So Rahul, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think this is very well-known problem across not just independents, but everywhere in the grocery industry, right? Like you have one POS, you have some loyalty program, you use somebody else for the flyer, you use somebody else for, your marketing, and how does that everything come together? So one question that I recommend people start with is like, what have you integrated with versus what will you integrate with as part of the onboarding, because there will always be some integration that will be needed as part of the onboarding. But what is the proof that you have that some of these technologies that we already use, which ones are live on your integration? So that's one thing. Second, like I think I highly recommend is like we tell this to our customers, is like talk to our previous customers. Like I tell this to our prospects, is like talk to our previous customers, what kind of experience they had in us integrating with the new technologies and so on and so forth. And I highly recommend that, because this is like, I think, more than money, like what causes the biggest pain is like loss of time. So if you invest a lot of time into getting something to work, and at the end of the day you don't have the desired result, then that's a challenge. But I think having multiple technologies is not necessarily a problem in itself, because very few providers can do all of it by themselves. Like, and there is always best of the breed technologies that you need to be using in order to compete and win in the market. So integrations are not going to go away. That is part of the life. But I think more emphasis on vetting while you're vetting the potential partner is like, what have you done before? What kind of integrations do you support, and how do you handle your integrations? That might set you up for success.
So the net of it is integrations aren't going away, so Sarah's going to need more cartons of cigs.
Yes. Different brands.
We believe you.
Yeah. Pat?
Yeah, so there's a term we've been using more and more, and it's called immersive integration. So
Trademark pending.
trademark coming, yeah. So what we find, and I think the most simple one to keep it really high level for this is coupons. So if we go back 6, 7, 8 years, a lot of retailers began with coupon clipping apps, right? You remember, I'm gonna start with a shopping list app, right? So these are sort of standalone, one function apps. So number one, you got to get down to one. You got to get to one point where you've got one central source of truth. Kroger doesn't have 5 apps, right? They're out there, and you got to make it really simple. If e-commerce is about anything, it's about convenience, okay? The next thing is those integrations happen, it needs to go beyond just, I'm going to click here and go to a different experience, and it's connected, and there's stuff to do over there, but it's not immersed in the experience. And so what happens is the shopper doesn't have that unified experience, right? And by way of that, it's not as simple to use. So you click, now you're out here in the coupon clipping app, you clip a coupon, now what? So a lot of the folks on the stage here do this immersive approach, but that's really the way to go. So you're in the experience, you're browsing in lane, or you're browsing in store, surfing, and you clip a coupon, it goes into the cloud, but it's right there. You don't have to go anywhere. You could buy the product, you could add it to a shopping list, but you're right there. So it's immersed, and there is a difference. So as you evaluate, talk to the partners you're going to work with, make sure you say, show me what that looks like. Just don't tell me it's integrated, show me what it looks like, because that experience is the surfing of the aisle, it is the bucket, and you want to make sure that bucket's not sitting there in aisle 3, right? You want to make sure it's a good experience. So think about immersive as you do your evaluations.
Raise your hand if you've been inside the office of a retailer, of a grocery retailer. Okay. Have you ever walked into the conference room, and what do you see spattered all across the walls?
Blood?
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know what offices you've been in.
Yeah.
You see the weekly ads of their competitors. They do a ton of competitive research every day, and they go physically visit these stores to see what's going on. Rahul made a point earlier about don't ask what they will integrate with, ask what they have integrated with. The validation is super simple. Just ask for 3 examples that have the same tech stack that you do, and go into that experience and validate that it's immersive, validate that's what you expect, and validate that that's the partner that you want to move with, go forward with moving forward. The other thing I'm going to recommend is if you are looking to, as an example, create a mobile app experience, you should ask yourself, if I am a consumer and I take the time to download your mobile app and put it onto my phone and in the palm of my hand, why am I doing that? What's the number one reason that I would actually go through those motions to do that? The answer could be to buy groceries. The answer could be to clip coupons. The answer could be to learn more about your history or your store hours. But whatever your answer is to that question, you likely should choose the vendor that provides that service as your main partner for that mobile app. And then let it, you can punch out to all the different other experiences in an immersive way, but choose the partner that provides the main service or the number one priority of your customer so that they don't have to jump through hoops to get there.
I think you guys covered it. Nothing to add.
Awesome. So any questions? We have got plenty of questions here. Any questions from the audience? Don't be shy. Here we go.
So you said just to your point, you said try to evaluate what you want to have a normal experience. Agree with that. If you're sitting in this room, I would argue that you probably don't have a normal relationship with the customer. So trying to think of what you would do as a consumer, I would say is probably quite biased and swayed. So in addition to what you said, I would also encourage go to a family member, a friend, a neighbor, someone that's not in the grocery business, and ask them what they actually do. Because people that probably are in this room generally don't know how normal people operate when it comes to buying groceries and things and what they do. So getting an inside opinion, absolutely, but also some of that opinion.
I think we just got called out as weird people in the grocery industry. Yes, no, in your defense, we are, so that's okay. So I probably wouldn't be doing my job up here talking about unified commerce if I didn't bring up the topic of retail media. So to a large extent, and I think, Merrick, you mentioned it, like everything old is new again, right? We started in, or Shawn, sorry, started in physical retail, moved to digital, and now retail media is all about how do we get more screens in store. And I don't think the panel can see this photo, but hopefully the future will not look like this. But how can grocers best use retail media to enhance, not harm the shopping experience? Shawn, we'll let you go first.
All right, so retail media, obviously a term that you guys have probably heard a lot lately, and lots of excitement around it, the ability to capture new brand funding via the digital channels that you own and the digital channels that you capture shoppers' attention with. Something that we really try to focus on as we're talking to retailers about retail media is that the shopper shouldn't know it's retail media. The shopper should feel like you are providing a better shopping experience, and behind the scenes you are working with the brands and through the partnerships that retailers have had with brands forever to create an experience that ultimately enhances that shopper's value at the store or selection, or is more personalized to them. Banner ads across the top of a weekly ad, or a promotion on the homepage, obviously they can have some benefit, but what we want retail media to be as invisible as possible. We want it to naturally integrate in to the site, and to ultimately make that shopper have a better experience at your store, whether it's through savings, learning about products they've never heard of before, getting the type of selection they're looking for on e-commerce without, for example, if my wife and I are going on an online shopping app and the first thing we see is dog food, we don't have dogs. We have 2 young children. That is plenty for us. We don't need another animal in the house. But when my grocer or whoever thinks it's smart to show me dog items, it's just something I instantly scroll past. So can we do things with retail media and brands where we make sure that we're looking at the shopper's history and present them with new opportunities to buy the products that they're more interested in, and at the same time help our brand partners to move more of that product by being more targeted?
I'll let Pat go next because he took off his glasses and looks very serious about this question.
It could just be it's a long day, and if I wanted to look smarter, I'd keep the glasses on. One of the things that strikes me, and there's a particular technology solution, they're no longer in business, and it used to drive me nuts. We see a little bit less of this today, but you ever get those marketing ads that go out and they say a nice message, but there's no clear call to action, right? And you sort of look at that, and all of us in retail and in this business go, well, what's the plan here? What are we trying to accomplish? So one of the things that goes back to the data is when you have retail media, make sure that it's connected to your inventory, and so that when that retail media is displayed and your shopper clicks it, that there's a clear action point and that product comes up. And I know the team here would take care of this, but make sure that when that ad goes up, they click the product. If it's a craft BOGO, you got to make sure craft products are available. And if craft products aren't available, that ad should be turned off. So it's, putting more ads out there isn't always the best solution. It's putting the ads at the right time and something you can support. So sometimes taking a little bit of a step back is an important step as well, because you don't want shoppers to say, hey, retail media, great, I clicked it and I couldn't do anything. And so that goes back to the data harmonization we were talking about earlier as well.
I believe the number, and I could be wrong on this, but I believe the number is somewhere in the $60 billion range for how much retail media dollars are flowing from the brands into grocery today. If you look at the independent grocery landscape specifically, we represent about a third of stores around the country. Last time I checked, the independent grocery universe is not benefiting from $20 billion of retail media. Why? It's really hard for the brands to get to independence in a meaningful and efficient way. It's really hard. And I think it's our job as a community that supports independent grocers to find the most compelling ways to build a pipeline system for brands to flow those dollars into our communities. And they actually have an appetite for that. They want to meet the independent where they are. Just got a thumbs up from Clorox. But it's really challenging today for them to do so. So I think together we have to band and figure out ways to do that in a more complex and unified way to help bring those dollars to our independents.
I think we covered pretty much everything here. Relevance is very important in serving the ad, so that's the personalization and the effectiveness of the ad. So track that with your retail media partner, is like how many times the ad was shown and how many times it was clicked, how many times the conversion happened, because that's what typically you should do on search and homepage products and so on and so forth. So the way you analyze the effectiveness of your merchandising on the rest of your site, rest of your app, analyze the retail media in the same way as well. Because if you're showing irrelevant ads like dog food to somebody who doesn't have a dog, then that's useless, that's a waste of primary real estate on your app, on your website, as well as it's a bad customer experience. So that's what I would recommend, just in addition to what was said here, is track your conversion, track your click rate, and track the effectiveness of your retail media properties and the products and recommendations that are shown with that.
Awesome. So we're approaching the end of our journey here, and I can tell that by the fact that the forklift behind us have gotten quieter. Two more questions. Where do you see unified commerce headed, and what should independents do today to prepare for tomorrow? Merrick, you got a microphone.
I have a mic. I would go back to where we started this conversation, which is basically get off the sidelines and do something. I think right now, independents from a digital perspective are still trying to differentiate and go their own way and trying to figure out things in a very independent manner, which is what they've historically done. But I think we really have an opportunity right now to come together and look at what's working and look at best practices and figure out the collection of vendors that are willing to work together to create an ecosystem that's easy to use, that's affordable, that's easy to integrate, and that's easy to get live. And then from a retail media perspective, again, one in which that we can flow dollars back to the independent through. I also think that, as we shift from e-commerce to, I don't want to steal your brand naming, but if we look at the unified commerce piece, 90% of transactions are still taking place in store. So what are we doing to enhance that experience in store to replicate what's going on in digital and vice versa? So when we look at things like smart carts as an example, we can take digital coupons, we can take loyalty, we can take online preferences, we can take weekly ads, we can take shopping lists, we can take aisle location, put that all into a experience that lives in store, but is still very digital and AI driven in nature, to create an experience that truly is unified and changes the game for independents. So again, I'm not saying that's the answer for everybody, we know it's not, but it's just ways of thinking about how do you address the other 90% so that you're thinking about this more holistically as opposed to e-commerce versus in-store.
Rahul?
Yeah, completely agree with that. I think there is no distinction between digital and in-store anymore. Like, it's all about your store, your brand, and the customers are interacting with your brand, whether they're in-store, whether they are online. And my advice is, don't do anything as a checkbox. Don't do it just, I want to have some e-commerce or some digital presence. You would rather not do anything, because that's the impression you're putting in front of your customers. You wouldn't have a store that is just like, some products that are there. You would put your heart and soul into the building that store, creating those aisles and merchandising. So invest into that. It's hard. I know it's not easy. It's easier said than done, but you have to do that, because that's the future. It won't matter if your app is not on your consumers' devices, and if your app is not on your customer's wallet, then they are gonna be, you're gonna risk losing those to other retailer whose app is on their phone. Because then once you have somebody's app on your phone, they have a direct channel of communication with you, push notifications, once you open the app, personalized messages, and so on and so forth. So this is the big opportunity where you can actually control the message, you can control the marketing, you can control how your users think about your brand, your store, and your offering. So that's how I think the unified commerce is gonna influence the future of grocery retail. It won't matter if it's online order, it won't matter if it's in store. It's how the order, how the customers keep coming back to your store, how the customers keep finding value at your store. And that's the opportunity in front of us.
Pat?
Yeah, 10 years ago, most retailers were not online selling groceries, right? Now it's table stakes. Short 10 years, right? If I say 2015, most of you go, yeah, that's yesterday, right? I certainly do. Things like SEO, things like Scan and Go that are Amazon driven and sort of this very cutting edge are going to be table stakes in the next 10 years. And so getting in the game the right way. Something that strikes me right away is scalability. Now, when you work with your partners, is understanding, if you have a good IT person, getting in and say, show me the underlying structure of the product. How can you scale from 1 user to 1 million users? How can you scale from 1 purchasing channel to 5? How can you do it to 6, right? And so I would sort of dig in on that. But going back to something Merrick said too, show me the history. Show me how you've scaled historically. Even before you sort of get into the back-end code and the infrastructure, just show me what new features have you continued to add, right? Who's your partner that really is being innovative and adding, 2 features a year or adding 200 features a year? And I would look to those that are continually proving that out and challenge them. Don't just have to accept it either. You can challenge them. But that scalability factor, I can't underestimate the value of that, is having a partner and you that can be scalable to, because the truth is there's going to be things over the next 5 years that we aren't even talking about right now. And those things will be table stakes in the next 5 years as well. So prepare for the things you don't even know are coming.
Shawn?
Yeah, I'll just add that, as we look at this space for independents and regionals and wholesalers, there's a lot more players in the space now. There are, and that can create complexity. It can create, a challenge in analyzing and looking at all the different options. But at the same time, it also presents an opportunity that as this becomes more table stakes for retailers, better developers, better companies are entering the space. They're learning, they're iterating, they're getting better at what they do. The options available to the independent today in terms of unified commerce are astronomically better in terms of the user interface, in terms of the experience, than they were 10 years ago. There has been all kinds of innovation around that experience. The stuff that the tier ones are doing, obviously they have the budgets and the teams to put way more into that, but you as an independent benefit from that. That does trickle down to a point where there is now technology available to you that is at a fraction of the cost of what they did and how they funded it. And so, as much as we talk about how technology is moving faster than it ever has before, we also have an opportunity to lean on that experience, to lean on that progress. And independence, as much as it is a challenge and you have to be willing to step out and take a risk by launching one of those things, once you do it, you absolutely have an opportunity to be successful with it. So, I think what we're going to see is that it's going to continue. It's going to become more prevalent throughout. Everybody's going to, in a few years, everybody's going to be doing more of this. But there are options today that are much better than there were before. So I think there's absolutely hope and opportunity.
So Shawn, one of the things I want to put you on the spot for before we close out is I think you subtitled this session. So before we close out, if you can share the subtitle of the session with everyone, we'd appreciate it.
Yes. So as I was getting ready for the NGA conference, my LinkedIn, the new hotspot for social media for guys like us who just can't be doing Instagram posts. We like to talk about what we're going to be doing at NGA. So everybody gets the ats, everybody gets the nice little graphics that show our faces and say we're going to be on stage and here's what we're going to be talking about. And my marketing team said, hey, we got our first round of these. You're going to be on the online shopping thing, you're going to be on the retail media one. And we said, what's going to get people's attention? And I said, well, what if we give the people what they want? Let's say the title is eCommerce and Taylor Swift. And for my retail media, it was how retail media saved my marriage. And then we were talking about digital transformation, but for our session, it was titled Digital Transformation of My Waistline. And so, those are the things that I think people wanted to hear. And so if you came today wanting to know about e-commerce and Taylor Swift, I think the thing you have to remember is, Taylor Swift, she used to just be something that, somebody you knew listened to, but now everybody's listening to her. Everybody knows who she is. Unified commerce, it's going to be the same thing.
Yeah, and I don't think you can see the photo, but I got you covered.
Oh, perfect.
So,
and Michael did send me a photo of Taylor Swift shopping. She's just like us, guys.
Yeah, celebrities. So there's one takeaway from today. Celebrities are just like us when it comes to unified commerce model, trademark pending. So please join me in thanking our panel for their time today.